can I have you guys, Democrats, look at me?
Ready?
Oh, wait. Oh, God. Can you just give me a countdown? Yeah. Thanks. Welcome to News and Views. I'm James Hutchison. Immigration. It's an issue that launched the presidential campaign of Donald Trump and propelled the unlikely candidate all the way to the White House. Immigration has been called the issue that affects all other issues as it determines who lives and votes here. With Washington at a crossroads, what course should our policymakers take? Well, let's debate it. On the left, we have Sean Riley and Louis Jablowski from the Penn State College Democrats. And over on the right, we have Vincent Cucchietta, hope I said that right, and Kevin Fenchak, hope I said that right too, from the Penn State Bull Moose Party, a pro-Trump group. Thank you all very much for being here. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having us.
Okay, my first question is for the right side of the aisle. Some mayors argue that sanctuary cities are safer because illegal immigrants will be more likely to report information about violent crimes if they do not fear deportation for doing so. So doesn't depriving crime-fighting federal funds from cities that want to encourage the reporting of violent crime make those cities less safe?
Well, if I may take that.
Sure, go for it.
I think that that's sort of missing the major point of that issue, and it's that there are criminals who are not here legally. They've already broken one law by being here, and they've perhaps endangered the lives of others by driving drunk or even speeding. Other infractions that they're not held responsible for because because the city has chosen to not cooperate with federal immigration enforcement. And so I don't think that's fair to the lawful citizens of the counties and cities that would call themselves sanctuary cities at all, because, I mean, these people shouldn't be here in the first place, and, they're committing crimes.
Okay, what do you guys think? Sanctuary cities, good thing or not a good thing?
So, first of all, I'd like to thank you, James, again for having us here, and I'd like to thank PSN for giving us this great opportunity to speak. For better or for worse, the reason why many people end up immigrating to this country without an authorized status is because the situation in their home country is just so dire that they can't even bear to live there anymore. The situation in Syria, if you look at Homs, if you look at Aleppo, you can't live in those cities. Situations in Mexico City, cartel violence has gotten to the point where people are afraid to even walk into the street. So that is why people come here without an authorized status. When you equate illegal immigration with automatically being a criminal, that's where it's really edging on some gray area. Now, as far as some of the things that my compatriots here over on the other side said about law enforcement not following through on DUIs, actually that's not entirely true. Under DACA and the current proposed DREAM Act, if you have a DUI or any kind of misdemeanors like that, you're actually not qualified to receive these benefits or receive these protections. In every group of people, there are bad eggs, and they are dealt with in populations of immigrants.
Okay, well, clearly disagreement on the sanctuary city issue. I know both of you brought up some other issues, so we'll try to get to those too. Next question is for the left side. We'll start with, following the iron law of supply and demand, an excess of low-skilled labor depresses wages for all Americans who are seeking entry-level jobs. So when you consider that, wouldn't moving toward a merit-based immigration system improve the prospects, the job prospects, I should say, for less skilled and working-class Americans?
We already have a merit-based system per se. If you look at the DACA program, once again, they're not these immigrants, I should say. They are here to more or less get a higher education, and if they have already received a higher education, they're here to further that education even more so. And if they're not getting a higher education, more than likely they're trying to enlist in our armed forces or be a productive member of our society. So most of the time, immigrants who are coming into our nation are here just to either work and send money back home, or to make a better lives for themselves here in our great nation of ours. So.
Okay. To the other side, what about the influx of low-skilled immigration? Doesn't that depress the wages of low-skilled Americans? How do you respond?
Well, yes, absolutely. I think it does. And you can see that for many illegal immigrants, many work in very low-paid professions. You know, we hear the constant rhetoric over farm laborers and that sort of thing. That's another thing entirely. We had in the past guest worker programs for that sort of thing. But more largely, the presence of large quantities of low-skilled labor is both holding back automation, which is now coming back more as there's a signal from the federal government that illegal immigration will not be allowed to continue to this extent. And you see in many other countries that don't allow for millions of illegal immigrants to come to their country that this hasn't caused problems economically, certainly. And largely I think that yes, that having a large supply of low-skilled labor is holding back the American economy. It's preventing it from advancing and remaining competitive.
Okay. Well, let's move on to extreme vetting, which is another big facet of the immigration issue. And this question will start with the right side. The immigrant vetting process as it stands today includes disclosing employment history, past addresses, tax returns, fingerprints, medical exams. You have to conduct an interview with a USCIS officer and participate in an FBI background check. So how much more extreme does our vetting need to get, and how can it predict whether someone who seems peaceful will go on to commit a crime?
Well, so first of all, I think that we've got to frame this as America first, right? That's what Donald Trump ran on. That's what all of these policies are geared towards. It is looking out for the interest of America and Americans, the people who have were born here, live here legally, and so I am not any expert on the kind of sociological impacts that would cause somebody to commit violent crimes, but these policies have been in place, and they weren't doing enough. We had that truck run down. The man who was here on an immigrant visa program, who clearly was not vetted extremely enough.
He did follow all of those procedures that everyone else was.
I mean, that's what we're saying, right?
So what more should we do specifically?
I think that what needs to happen is, first of all, things like the chain migration that would have allowed for, and I believe more than 20 people used him as a point of contact. Okay. Things like that need to be ended because that allows people to speed up the process and not have to go through all of these things in the first place. And also, I think that more tests about the character of the people that we're bringing over here need to be put through.
Okay. Sorry, just for time, let's send it back to the other side. Do you think our vetting procedures are extreme enough?
I'm surprised that people on the conservative side really want to ramp up this government database of information, personal information, fingerprints. I think it's a very extensive process, and no matter how extreme you make the process, there's going to be people who slip through the cracks. I mean, we've already got such a low level of crime rate coming from these immigrants who are being vetted that I'm not really sure that there's anything much we can do short of putting muzzles on everybody who comes to this country.
Okay, well, we don't want that, but let's move on to the issue of the wall. Many Democrats argue that a wall on our southern border, and this is for this side, I should say, the wall on our southern border would be frivolous, but walls in other countries tell a different story. The Jewish Virtual Library reports that since Israel erected a security wall in 2002, terrorist attacks nosedived more than 90%. So if a wall can reduce illegal crossings that pose a threat to Israeli citizens, why aren't Americans entitled to the same protection?
Okay, first of all, I need to take disagreement with your question.
Okay.
We have had walls erected in Israel, and still we have intifada after intifada. We have radical groups in Israel still committing suicide attacks.
Down 90%?
they still occur. And we all saw how much of a great success the Berlin Wall was. So when it comes to...
Well, didn't they want to tear it down because it was effective at what it was there to do?
It was separating... well, honestly, that's a completely different topic in and of itself.
Okay.
When it comes to the United States, we already have a very well-developed fence on our southern border. The Washington Post just reported in 2015 that illegal immigration from Mexico is down, the lowest it's been in the past 2 decades. We already spend more on immigration enforcement than we do any other law enforcement priority combined. And the vast majority of people who illegally immigrate on our southern border actually don't do it through the land border. It is from air and from sea.
Okay.
And the majority of the drugs that come into this country as well are not from the land border. As far as my agreement with the president's plan for a wall, I would love to see a plan. I would love to see something beyond big and beautiful rhetoric. I've heard that it might be the American taxpayer that ends up paying for it because Mexico has said time and again that they are not going to pay for this wall. If that is the case, then I certainly take disagreement with that plan.
Okay, back to the other side. President Trump promised the wall. It became a rallying cry at his rallies. We're almost a quarter of the way through his first term. Is he going to deliver?
Oh, I believe he is. And certainly if we can roll it back a minute here, the Berlin Wall was extremely effective. In fact, may have averted the Cold War going hot. So effective was it. The Israeli wall has been effective too. If you want to look at the response to the migrant crisis in various countries in Eastern Europe, walls per se, border fences, barbed wire, border checkpoints, that's been the standby for enforcement, and it indeed has worked. It's channeled these flows to different areas. Certainly they're not going through the same way anymore, and that tends to simplify the issue a little bit. And perhaps the wall is the most economic way to bring enforcement in. Perhaps it's not. Cost-benefit analysis certainly would be in order. We don't want to spend all this money on something that's not going to be effective. Yet I believe it can be, and I believe that even if it's not, that the principle behind it, ending massive illegal immigration across the border from Mexico, whether by air, sea, or land, should be a top priority for federal law enforcement. In addition to that, I think that the costs from illegal immigration far outweigh any monies that are spent on enforcement. We're talking about infrastructure. We are talking about healthcare expenses. We are talking about schooling for children that are born here as citizens, right, while their parents are not and have not paid in to the system. We're talking about a great number of things that the American citizens in this country are spending money on for people who are not members of their society and have come here illegally.
I believe remittances, just to add on that, remittances outweighed whatever the next top thing on Mexico's biggest share of GDP is. So that's money from the United States that was earned in the United States from a job that could have been had by an American citizen, sent back to Mexico.
Okay. Back to the right side of the aisle here. Let's talk about the issue of birthright citizenship that President Trump brought up during the campaign. Actually, since we're short on time, let's move on to my last question, so we won't get to birthright citizenship. A main argument for DACA, and this is for this side, but we'll go back, is that children shouldn't pay a price when their parents broke the law. But if we chose not to enforce the laws because the children of the perpetrator may suffer, isn't that an argument not to enforce any law that might affect children?
That's absolutely not the case here. If we were to go around not enforcing any laws, what would be the point of our great legal system that we have? What would be the point of making sure we keep order in society? Anything like that. But to go back to the main question here, though, DACA recipients, once again, when they do receive this funding, a couple 100,000 of them, we are ultimately looking to ensure that they have the best quality of life. I mean, look, when you came out of your mother's womb, you didn't choose where to come out of, right?
I don't remember it
saying
well.
That. Yeah, my point is, though, is that you came out where you did, and that's what it is. So.
I apologize. I know we could go on a lot longer, but that is all the time we have for this edition of News and Views. I want to thank our guests on the left, Sean Riley and Louis Jablowski from the College Democrats, and from the right, Vincent Gutierrez and Kevin Fenchek from the Penn State Bull Moose Party. Thank you for watching. I'm James Hutchison, and remember, through the contest of ideas, the truth will emerge. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, James.
Thank
very
you.
much, James.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Good talk.
Yeah, good talk.